Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And our webinar is about to start. You can take it away, Connie.
All right, thank you, Justine. So welcome to Mental Health First Aid. We are going to discuss this important topic this morning here. Just to let you know, Justine is here to monitor the chat. We will try to answer all of your questions, but we will be mindful of the time as well. So if we don't answer your question during the time, we will reach out at the end of or after the webinar is done and answer your questions. So to get started, we'll just do a quick introduction here. I'll let Bob introduce himself first.
Good morning, Bob Williams. I've been doing safety for 20 some odd years, as you see, 22 plus years. I've spent time with MIN-OSHA consultation. I've done coordinating on site with a contractor, general contractor. I've done safety directing for a general contractor and an electrical contractor. And it's been a fun time, challenging time, and a lot of interesting questions going on.
All right. So, and I'm Connie Van Raalte. I come from HR and safety. I've been in the industry for about 15 years, really working on site to help ensure that we have positive work cultures. I enjoy the safety realm of it a lot, but I also see the overlap with the HR side as well. Hence talking a little bit about mental health first aid, because I think it's a very important topic. Just to let you know, this is a continuing education credit. If you are looking to get that credit or CE credit, you would need to email Jennifer at oecscomply.com after it, and she will get you an evaluation form. Once you fill out that evaluation form, she will return your CE credit to you. And if you have any questions, we put them in the chat and we can help with that after as well. Your involvement is important. We do want to make sure you have an opportunity to ask your questions. We also will have a quick survey at the end just to talk about how we're doing. Our goal is to make sure that this hits the mark and that it answers your questions, kind of what you're looking for, and provided some level of value. So please answer the surveys as we go here. Just to reiterate our mission, so OECS mission is to inspire strong safety cultures. And I know we talk a lot about safety as in workplace safety and looking at physical things as we go out. And we just want to make sure we're looking at every aspect of safety as we're looking through the lens of safety at our clients. And you guys look at it in your workplaces. So I know kind of the starting point, we hear about mental health all of the time in the news, everywhere else. And I just kind of want to talk through that a little bit. Let's talk through why we have to talk about mental health in workplaces. I think I worked in a fair share and maybe have some supervisors or leaders that think, well, that's a kind of personal thing that we, does that really impact our workplaces? And I know if you go back 20 years, it was like, keep that stuff outside of the workplace. But that isn't really a reality to think how things actually happen. So we do have this impacting us all the time. And we want to make sure we're thinking about all aspects of safety. So Bob, when you go out to a work site, what are things that you're looking for from a safety perspective?
Safety perspective, as we see on the screen, what I call the simple things. What are the physical hazards, the fall protections, the electrical protections, the hard hats, the safety glasses, all of that kind of thing. The interesting part, as you're talking about the mental health, is that aspect of it that you don't think about. But I always check in with certain people.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? And it's interesting because I haven't done that. I don't think that I'm doing it for a mental health capacity as much as I'm doing it just to, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. But it's plays the same role.
Right. So we talk about the physical risks all the time, but we got to start talking about the dangers that we can't see. Anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, they may be more dangerous than some of these other hazards. Over the years, the industry has changed and the safety realm. We are much more aware of hazards, and we do way more to protect people from hazards because the regulations gotten better and it's dramatically changed. But do you know what hasn't gotten better?
Tell us.
So mental health and the care of mental health and how we're handling day-to-day situations. That mental health access really lags behind. So as much as OSHA's done and we've pushed and looked at how can we improve these workplace hazards, that side of it hasn't improved yet. So, and in fact, there's lots of studies that say it's gotten worse. So do you think we could prioritize mental health as much as like wear and fall protection?
I think we can. I think we're moving in that progression.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that movement is just having conversations about it. But I think we can. And I think we're going to find numbers are going to show us that there's a lot of room for improvement.
Okay. So what industries, careers are having the most impact or the most employees affected by mental health concerns? All of these look very familiar to us. Manufacturing laborers, construction laborers, electricians. Weren't you, isn't that kind of dear to your heart, electricians?
And the labor.
And the laborers, right?
Yes.
Manufacturing is I've done a lot of work in manufacturing. Heavy and tractor trailer drivers, first line supervisors of mechanics, installers, and repairers, and maintenance and repair workers. Pretty much people we run into every day, right?
Every day.
Right. And people that you guys are working with every day. Common mental disorders that commonly occur in the United States: depression, anxiety. I always stop and pause at anxiety because people don't want to ever talk about anxiety. You know, like it's not a real thing. Like,
No, we don't. I mean, we've been hearing about people with anxiety more since the pandemic,
mhm,
but yet the thought process is, well, that's the pandemic and now it's gone. So everybody's anxiety is going to come down. But in reality, it's there. And what are some of those triggers that can push that anxiety to push us to react in a way that we don't normally react? But that's a mental disorder, which it's okay to have.
mhm. It's just, how do we help somebody with that and knowing that these are common things that can happen, there shouldn't be any shame because it's happening to lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorders, eating disorders, and substance use disorders are all disorders that are occurring on a regular basis. I'm sure we have someone on all of our job sites that are going through at least one of these things.
Well, I know we do.
Yeah. So how common are mental disorders? Approximately 1 in 5 adults in the United States are diagnosed with mental disorders in a year.
So it's interesting that we've got this slide here.
Yeah.
Because just in the news this morning on WCCO, they mentioned this,
Mhm.
that 1 in 5 in the United States. And it's like, golly, it's interesting that it's coming up on the TV this morning and we're talking about it today.
Right. When I look at that, I'm thinking 1 in 5 are diagnosed, but because of the stigma and the ideas around mental health, there might be a few more that aren't getting diagnosed that might be having this issue, right? It's not the easiest thing to get into a doctor to get diagnosed for, but you may be having symptoms of it, right?
Right.
So it might be higher. Almost half of all US adults will experience a mental health challenge at some point over the course of their lifetime. So yeah, I think the pandemic kind of put some people there that they didn't expect to be there, maybe. But we all have an opportunity, or it could happen to any of us, right? So it's an issue that we're bringing to work and we're bringing everywhere we go. It isn't something we can just get over or get through without some level of help and support. This one kind of blows my mind. So suicide rates on the workplace are on the rise. At work, people are attempting suicide or able to commit it and go through that situation. I think we recently had a situation that we responded to, correct?
We did. We had a situation where We had a client give us a call, ask us to come do an investigation because one of their employees got hurt, had fallen off of a upper level platform. We went out, did our investigation, asked a bunch of questions, took a bunch of pictures, just to try and figure out what really happened. And what we found out was that this particular person was, according to coworkers, was having a bad day. But then after we had the opportunity to actually talk with that employee, the employee was having more than just a bad day. They heard some voices, made a decision to jump because they thought there was a pool down below and it looked really refreshing. So boom, off we go. And here again, just a bad situation, and able to, fortunately, the person didn't die, but we were able to come up with questions and answers to get this person leading down in the right direction for the assistance.
Right. And which is really good. And if this were to ever happen on our workplaces, obviously this would impact everybody that was there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never think that you'd be at work and somebody would be committing suicide at work.
Right.
It doesn't like correspond to what you're thinking about that day.
No.
If that were to happen on our job sites, you would need to bring in some extra care to those employees that went through that situation as well. So it's hard to believe when we talk about this, that it's happening on construction sites, it's happening in manufacturing. People are choosing that place. Why do you think they'd choose work to commit suicide?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
We can go a lot of different directions with that
Right.
question. Part of the thinking might be, well, I don't want to hinder the family. I don't want my children, my wife, mom or dad to find me or impart in anything on them. But in fact, it does.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and then it impacts everybody else too. And so, obviously, if work, we spend so much time there, right? More time sometimes than with our families. If that was a safe place for us, we might be more comfortable having that conversation rather than thinking of that being the place where we were going to commit suicide.
Mhm.
If you have true connections there, you'd think of them just like your family, right?
Yep.
So that one was very surprising to me.
Connie and Bob,
Yes.
given we have two questions that have come up.
Yep.
Should we call them disorders? That word implies the stigma, and then this is kind of a part, they're kind of all similar, so I'll read both of them. You can lump them together if you wish. Can you define the difference between mental disorder or illness or some other terminology?
Sure. So I took part of this is that I took a mental health first aid class through the mental health organization. And they call them still disorders. As somebody isn't choosing to have this happen to them, it can also be called a challenge, as it's a piece of your life that you're going through, but it isn't something that people are wanting to have happen to them, or even have, sometimes they don't have as much control over. So they're at this point, places are still calling them disorders, as it isn't something that you're able to work through easily. What was the other? I may have missed answering another question. Was there another piece?
Yes. Can you define the differences between mental disorder or illness? So that might have been answered. I'm not sure if you want to add anything extra to that one.
Okay. So illness, I mean, it's just, I think we need to think of this illness, a mental health illness, just like we think about having diabetes or heart disease. And I think sometimes there's a good amount of stigma around these topics that cause us not to look at it in that manner. It is an interesting thing. One of the things in the mental health class that I took, mental health first aid, is when cancer came out in the 70s, people were very hush hush and didn't want to say that they had that. and it was a big deal, and people weren't talking about it because of the stigma around cancer. And over the years, now we do fundraisers and all kinds of different things to support people that have cancer. So when we look at these different illnesses that can occur in our mental health, then we can take a look at them just like we look at those other things, and people get through those, and you can do the same in these types of illnesses and disorders with the appropriate help. So hopefully that answered the question, and if it didn't, I will respond at the end as we continue to go through. So substance abuse, that is a mental health disorder as well. It's at an all-time high. 75% of those abusing illicit drugs are employed. Most binge drinkers are as well. 25% of construction workers report using illicit drug use. So I think sometimes, and this happens in manufacturing as well, where 10, 20 years ago, somebody shows up and you can tell they're not in their normal sorts, and they may be either still drunk or getting over being drunk. And we say, oh, go sleep it off and come back around 1 after you've had time to do that. Well, we don't have that opportunity when it's an illicit drug. It's going to stay in their system the whole time. So the world is changing, and we're moving. Yes, alcohol is still a concern, but we're moving into some other things that weren't commonly available and is readily accessible. And people weren't using them at the same rates that they are today. Almost 1 in 10 employees has a substance abuse problem, and 24% of workers admit to using drugs or drinking during the workday at least once in the last year. So these are all from workplace at mentalhealth.org, and of them asking questions to employees. And I think it's very interesting, as I guess most of us would believe this wasn't happening, I feel.
I would think that too,
Mhm.
but at the same time, part of that stigma is we think of illegal drugs, but yet how many of us take a prescription, which then we have to take that to get through the day.
Mhm.
But then, yes, that can become an abuse, which leads to other things. But throw that into the mix when we're thinking about that as well.
Mhm. Yep. Okay.
What is the leading cause of disability worldwide? What do you think it is? And what do you think it is, Connie?
Well, obviously, it'd be the big medical things that we think about all the time, the cancers, the heart disease, maybe smoking, all the things that we hear about all the time.
Right.
So
What?
what's the answer?
Depression.
good.
Depression is our biggest impact, and we don't think of it because it's one of those invisible things. But depression affects all of us, and it does affect the way that we work and do our job.
When people are not able to work due to their state of depression that they're in, so they are on disability or are not part of the workforce due to this disabling mental health situation. So it is kind of surprising, maybe, but it just talks about how prevalent it is, and we need to be aware of that and kind of think about it on a day-to-day basis. So depression and anxiety, they cost the global economy $1 trillion in lost productivity each year. You think that's true?
Oh, I'll bet it's even more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, people don't talk about it. And then our perception becomes, well, he keeps missing, or she doesn't showing up, or they're late, or they're just not doing their job today. Their mind is on other things, which this is the number that we know about, but I know that it's higher than that.
Yeah. Yep. So if we can get a handle on this, it obviously has an impact on our day-to-day world, don't you think? Research shows that access to mental health care maintains workplace performance, and I would perform better if I had the care that I need.
Oh, absolutely. If I felt comfortable coming into work, just knowing that, okay, I'm having a bad day today,
Mhm.
it definitely will affect the performance, but then we can work together on making that better.
Right, and being open and being able to communicate is probably going to make me feel more safe about having a bad day, because I think we all have them, and it might not even just be a bad day. I might be going through something in my life that is going to take me a minute to get through.
Yes.
So even though we know that it has a great impact if I can get mental health care, but people aren't always going to find this. They're not seeking it out. Even though our companies have great EAP systems and we think, hey, this is the solution to, hey, if you have a problem, you give these a call. Studies show that people aren't calling. There's gaps in getting help. Most people that have a mental health issue, it takes them a long time to get the actual care that they need. And these are some reasons why. So feeling shame or there's stigma around it. I don't want to
So-
say I have this going on.
And a quick story.
Yeah.
Coworker, this is a few years back, but a coworker that I'd gotten to know, seemed to be having a bad day. But the old "I'm fine" came up, and we just kept going. A few days later, it just kept compounding. Finally, I was able to have that conversation, say, something just isn't right, and help me understand. It was the relationship that I had started with this person prior to their situation, but come to find out that young child's at home, not feeling well. Things started going on with the house. And then what we had going on at work, we just got really busy. And so there was that pressure at work to get going and get things done, which is at the time was just fine, but that compounded upon their child, upon the things going on with the house, and then mom got sick. So a lot of things compounded, and this coworker of mine just started shutting down, stopped talking with everybody, just wasn't producing the way that they normally produced. And I was able to have that relationship to be able to pull out of this person, help me understand what's going on, because you're just not yourself. Something isn't right. And through that, we were able to help them get to where he needed to be.
Sure, that's great. A lot of this is relationships. If I feel shame and stigma, I'm probably not going to go get help because I don't want to be that person. There's fear of judgment from peers. So if somebody else were to find out, I don't want that to happen. Or will I lose my job if they find out I'm having these issues? Or I don't even know how to access care. We all have these great programs that we are like, hey, this is how you're going to do this. But I don't think people get how supported they are and even how to use those programs. So what are we doing, or how can we do that different so that they can get the help? Because we know it impacts their performance, and the better we can help somebody else, the better we feel and the more committed they are to helping us help them. So how can we do it, or what can we do to create a mentally healthy organization? So we're going to just go through some basics here, but it really does start at the top. If your management or leader or president doesn't believe that mental health or prioritizing mental health at work is something we should be doing, it's not going to get trickled down. But interestingly enough, in surveys that we find, 77% of presidents and CEOs believe that prioritizing mental health at work is a great priority, and we should be investing energy and time and money into this. On here, I think it's really interesting, though, because the president, who leads the pack, and it helps a lot, feels this way. But when you look at people that are going to be probably fielding a lot of these different situations that are occurring, are probably the field management and supervision, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
So they think, 56% in this study prioritize mental health at work. Throughout my career being in HR, I can tell you that field management and supervision are probably the backbone to what you're doing every day. They create
Yeah.
the environment, they create everything that's going on. And they're also the people that are having have relationships with people that can really make a difference. And if they don't prioritize it, even if the president prioritizes it, but they don't prioritize it, there could be lots of reasons why they wouldn't. Like, do they even know how to handle those situations? Because we always say, well, we have these great programs, but do the people that need to use them really know how to use them? Or do they have the training? Because sometimes talking to people is kind of hard.
It's talking to people, but other than giving instructions is very difficult.
Right.
And that's where our field supervisors come in.
Exactly. And they're busy. I mean, they got the list of stuff that needs to get done. But are we giving them time and tools to be able to handle my mental health situation that's going on, that's impacting my job, that's impacting them? And I'm probably impacting others around me too.
Mm-hmm.
So a good portion, and this is just an example of an org chart, organizational chart. Like if the president says something, it's probably getting trickled down to the next level, but how far does it go down? How does it get to the new employee? Does it get to the person that's been here for 20 years that doesn't maybe know that we offer this type of support? How can we improve that communication, or how can we give people skills to be able to manage this type of situation?
That's the hard part, is giving the people the skills. I believe that part of that is the way that we communicate amongst ourselves, the way that the president communicates with the operations or the finance when we're talking about a situation. And the words that we use, we may not really intend to imply something, but when we use particular words like what the heck were they thinking, or that was stupid, then that portrays a different picture. So we need to kind of change the way that we communicate all the way down this list and building those relationships.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when I was in college, there wasn't a class on how to appropriately talk to people about these types of situations. And, how do you approach it? I see people when there are workplace challenges or even personal challenges with people, our tendency is to run the other way, like, I don't want to have to deal with that. I'm out. Where we should really be more engaging, and we should really be asking the questions of, how are you doing? Or I notice you're different today, because if I have a relationship built with this person, if I had said that to you, you might be more apt to open up, right? If we have a long-term relationship. But if I just come to you as like, what's your deal? And we don't normally talk, this is what I think that's going on with you, that you're gonna get super defensive. So.
And on that point, one of the interesting things is right, as companies, we've got the HIPAA laws that we have to be careful of. We can't ask what medications you're taking or anything like that. And when I talk with people about that kind of thing, that's when I talk with workers and say, look, if I have diabetes, I want somebody to know. So I'm going to build a relationship so that, someday candy's in my lunch pail.
Right.
You know where it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same thing, same kind of building relationships to be able to share information that, look, I'm having a bad day. I need you to ask me some questions, but we have to feel comfortable in doing that.
Yeah. And we have to notice, and not think, oh, well, obviously they have something going on. And yeah, we can have bad days here and there, and it might not be, a true mental health situation. But if it was, maybe it would be enough to be able to get somebody to think about a different way to handle it, which would change their whole world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to be aware it's relationships, it's talking to people, it's knowing people. And it isn't just knowing their name and what they did wrong. It's knowing, hey, how's it going? How you feeling? What's happening? in a realm that we can really have and foster a sense of belonging at work. So I know this is kind of a buzzword these days of like making sure we're fostering a sense of belonging. And I kind of want to take it to another level. So what does sense of belonging look like, or what does it feel like? In a study, it says, what would make you feel like you belong at the company where you work? And knowing that if you belong somewhere and you feel involved and engaged, you're going to be more apt to want to show up there, right? You want to do a good job and you feel very connected. If you don't have that connection, you're going to be more apt to be like, well, I can call in today because it doesn't have an impact. Or I'm just another number that they have, I'm number 15 versus or 500 or 5,000. I'm not a person, I'm just a number. And if I'm treated that way, I don't feel like I probably belong, right? I don't have that connection.
Yeah.
And due to how much time we spend at work, it might be one of the only connections I have in my life, depending on what we do for a job. Or I may see my family on the weekends, but then I have 5 days a week or whatever it is that I might need some other support from people I'm seeing every day. So top percentages really are being recognized for my accomplishments, feeling that my contributions on a team are valued, making sure I can be myself, I can openly discuss my opinions, and having that type of relationship. We all want something that we're like proud of and that we're doing something to help a bigger cause. It's a known fact. It's been around for forever. We enjoy belonging. It's one of our vital things that we've always worked to strive to have. We can make that at work.
It's interesting. I walked onto a job site earlier this week and talked to a gentleman there that I haven't seen in quite a while. And he's been working for this particular company for 8+ years. And I said, why are you still here? He says, first and foremost, I'm here because they care.
Mhm.
And I says, explain that to me. And he says, my opinion matters.
Mhm.
And they're still willing to listen to what I'm saying. And I feel that's a value that keeps me here and I'm valued, which if you look on that list, that's number 2 and number 3 on that list.
Right. And I think about new people. I mean, we all know that it's hard to find great employees these days. But, what are we doing from the start of their employment to get them to feel like they belong to the team? I've met trainers that are like, yeah, I'll train the person. You just stay away from me, okay? Because you're going to figure this out, but it's going to be more on your own because I'm not really interested in this. So if I don't have a connection as being a new employee, I don't feel like I belong, and these things aren't going to ever come to fruition for me, so that I can really have that sense. I may have a mental health concern, but this may make it worse if I don't have a place where I belong.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about disconnect, I think, is kind of what this is. So a study was done, and it's talked about how did organizations respond when they were asked if they had a caring culture in which workers could reach out for mental health care when it's needed. So 51% of the people that were studied on this said, yeah, we have a great caring culture. We do barbecues, we do all of these different things. We have a great EAP system. We do these things. But over half disagreed, and they may still be doing all of those great things. How do you think we could have a disconnect there? How could we think, hey, we're doing so awesome at this, but our people might not feel that?
That's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really have to examine yourself in that, in a leadership role, in a relationship role of, it's great that we're doing all this, but am I having good conversations? Am I really listening?
Mm-hmm. And is it really the message that we send as our company culture? Is it really making an impact? Is it really getting to everyone so they can truly answer this question with yes, we are, yeah, we take care of each other, rather than we think we do, or we're not sure. And this one, I think, kind of follows that right up, is would employees openly discuss mental health concerns with their supervisors? Here it says 17% would discuss, and the rest of the percentages either would not or don't know if they would. So if we feel like our culture and our mental health culture, or our company culture of caring is really up there, think about, would they really come and talk to us? Would they really, if they were having a situation, would they talk? And it can be supervisor to supervisor. Yeah, I can talk to that one, but I'm not talking to this one. That's not going to go well for me. So how do we create that culture from the top down, so that employees that do feel comfortable about having these conversations, because we know that it's impacting them every day?
One-on-one, building that relationship
Yep.
is really what it is.
Yep.
Asking, how are you doing this morning? Getting to know them, ask about their family, getting to know who they are, sharing. One way to do that.
Yep. Another way is, if someone were to bring that information up, applaud them. They are going out. I mean, that's a real scary place to be, is to tell somebody about some personal situation that you're not sure how they're going to react. So encourage them, make sure people know this is a really common thing. 1 in 5 people have it. We shouldn't expect that some of our employees don't need, they need to talk about it. And we shouldn't also do like a one and done approach. So we shouldn't have, oh, well, we talked to you about your mental health concerns. That's over now. You're better because we had this conversation. We're moving on with the day. We need to do some check-ins. We need to come back and say, how you doing today? What's going on?
Just like when somebody gets hurt physically.
Yeah.
How is your finger? How are your toes? Are they feeling better today than they were yesterday? Care and concern.
Yep, exactly. And then how likely are workers that need help going to seek help? So this is very interesting, because I know from my background, I'd have managers and owner operators say, well, I pay for this EAP program, and either nobody's using it or very few people are using it. I don't understand why we're paying for it. And then secondly, we have this EAP program, but nobody knows how to use it, right? So employees, it says here, likely to seek care is 26%. The other percent either doesn't know or they're unlikely to seek care. So I know from my experiences, like having somebody say, here's a piece of paper, you call EAP, this will help you. I'm not going to be involved, but here's a piece of paper. Maybe that works for some people. Maybe that's the 26%, but it looks like a good percentage of people might need a little bit more support than that, a little bit more care, a little bit more, how can I help you? What can we do together? In my previous world, I sat in the room with the person when they were calling EAP to be that support, to help them get through those hoops. I might have started, hey, this person needs to talk to you, and then turned it over to them to get through all of the waiting online type of stuff, or waiting on the phone type of stuff, and had that be my responsibility and not theirs. So, take a look at how are we really helping them seek care, and make sure that they have the support they need, not only in just a piece of paper, but maybe they need more than that. Maybe they need a little more encouragement, a little more support, and a little more check-in, because sometimes I'm not going to be ready for this idea the first time you bring it up, right?
Right.
I might be a little
It's
upset.
scary.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
And-
yeah, I don't need this. But then, check in with me and just continue on, and maybe that would be the thing. So as we talk through there, really looking at how can we raise mental health awareness and using the resources we already have. So in human resources, and that's near and dear to my heart, of, how are we looking at our recruitment, our hiring, our onboarding, our engagement, our training of employees, and on our development and coaching our supervisors, and knowing that, these skills don't just come to you, right? Unless you've had some experience working through different situations with different people, These aren't natural things that we can just tell somebody to deal with. We have to help and support them. And then looking at our employee benefits, are we really setting our people up with the tools that they need to make sure that their mental health situations are supported? Do we have mental health care as part of our insurance programs? What does our EAP look like? How are we what else could they offer that maybe we're not taking advantage of yet, that maybe that could be a benefit, and not having to recreate the wheel? And then as our, all of our roles as a safety person, what are we doing? We should be talking about mental health concerns, because just like we talked on the first slide, it's a hazard. It's a big hazard. One of the things that I read is in construction, you guys have the famous four, or the
Yep, I like that. Focus four, famous four is good.
Focus four. There's talk that could be impeding mental health situations such as suicide, could become part of that focus four, just due to the amount of people that are having injuries and accidents and suicide attempts and different things. And we would never think that could be at that level. So we do have to be talking about it. Consider providing training to your people, or to your managers and your first line supervisors, people that people are going to go to when they do have these situations. We need to teach people how to have conversations. It's just not a natural thing that most people have. And there are resources. Check with your EAP, see what kind of training and resources that they have. There's lots of different community organizations. We actually are able to train. So National Council for Mental Wellbeing, we offer mental health first aid courses, and that really goes through and teaches you here's different ailments, and here's how, as a person helping and supporting that person, you can learn the words, and you can learn the way to move through that and help that person out. And then review resources offered by the American Foundation of Suicide. These are just a few, there's lots of them, but figure out what is your message and how are you going to support this? Not a one and done, hey, we talked about it on Thursday and now we're done with this conversation. How do we really have true impact on our employees, and making sure we do have a culture of care? So what if we could send a clear message that employers care about their employees' mental health and their well-being? What if we could support them and connect them with care? What if we had the relationships, because they're with us all the time and we're with them, that we could be that piece that they'd feel comfortable opening up to? What if we could be that link? Think that'd be maybe make an impact?
It would make a huge impact. I know it would.
And also, what if we could learn how to handle mental health medical emergencies, just like we've learned how to do physical medical emergencies? So how do we handle these types of situations? I know many people have been through CPR and first aid training, and that helps you on the physical side. And we surely aren't going to have somebody cut their hand and they're bleeding profusely and say, yeah, I see that, but I don't want to deal with that. So, go away. How are we really helping people with their mental health situations? That's where mental health first aid can help. What it does is really talks about how do we notice potential mental health concerns? How do we build those relationships with our employees so that they feel comfortable? And then we can notice when they're not themselves. How do we learn to act and talk about it and make sure that we talk to them, that we're concerned about them, not because, it's a big problem, but we're just concerned because we're noticing changes, just like what you said, hey, tell me about this because this isn't normal with you and I need to understand. And then what if we could learn how to connect employees with the services and the support they need? I think that would make an impact. Just to give an overview of what mental health first aid would look like, really this is the action plan, and we would help make an action plan for your company of part of your emergency action, just as we do for physical ailments. Mental health would be another piece of it. But learning how to approach the situation, how to listen, how to give reassurance and give information, and then encourage them to get the support they need. Again, in CPR and physical health, you know, we might not be doctors, we can't fix their heart, but we're going to get them onto the place that can. And this is the same idea. We will not be able to probably answer and fix all the situations, but let's help them and support them to get the help they need by true people that can. So again, we're going to walk through noticing signs and symptoms, understanding when it really is a challenge versus I'm just having a bad day, or it's just part of my culture and I'm different than you. And that isn't, you know, we're just different. We look at things different. And then really talking through early intervention, again, how important those first conversations can be. So when we feel inside like, oh, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what to say, and I want to run away from this, just know that that's really more when you need to engage, right? Like when you have that feeling, you should know, hey, I really need to talk to this person because I can totally see something's going on. And it might just be something, I'm having a bad day, but then I've supported you in your bad day. And if that's the worst thing that happens to us, we're good, right? I notice. You do learn how to assess risk or suicide harm and how to work through things that maybe aren't a crisis today, but can become a crisis or can quickly move into crisis. Not every situation, if you build a good relationship with someone, I think people are always worried about aggressive behaviors and people like, don't tell me what to do. And yeah, you may get that, but probably if you have that relationship, you're going to get it way less, right?
Or you're going to understand, okay, that's not what he really or she really means.
Exactly. You're going to understand the person. Then we're going to talk through how to approach and assist in all kinds of situations. That was non-crisis, but there's crisis, and how do you work through that? And how do we prepare as a company to make sure we have these pieces in place, just like we do with everything else? Another piece of this is just listening non-judgmentally. How do we really not put our own like feelings out there? You know, like how do you make sure that when we're having conversations, it's being heard and that they are cared about? You also in that program get a lot of resources. So lots of opportunity to be able to help connect people. And I think this kind of gets lost in the shuffle sometimes of how would I even get this person to somebody that could help them? So in this program, you get a ton of different resources and different things that could maybe help this person or maybe would fit, because we're all different, right? So what fits for some might not fit for others. So we have all of these different opportunities to be able to connect that. Go ahead.
This video here that we're going to play, it's just under 2 minutes, and it's just a really good video. And take a listen.
There was a forensic psychologist for the San Francisco Police Department, Jerome Motto. He did an interview in the New Yorker magazine. And he spoke about the fact that he used to do the forensic work when people would jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. Unfortunately, it was very common. And he would have to prove there's no foul play. How did he do that? He was a psychologist, but the person had already jumped. You can't interview them exactly at that point. He would have to retrace their steps and prove that they were, God forbid, in a frame of mind where they wanted to take their own life. So basically, that was his job. He used to go and look at people's history and their background to see what happened right before they jumped. So he said he got so used to this. He saw so many hundreds of jumpers that he became numb to it. He said there was one story that shook him and he could never shake it loose. He said one night they found a jumper and they found ID. They went back to the apartment where the guy lived. They found an address. They walk into the house. They found a note on the dresser. He said, I've seen that 100 times, a note on a dresser, nothing new. But then I read the note, and it completely shook me to my core. It said, I'm walking to the bridge now. If one person stops me on the way and says hello, I'm turning around and coming home. Do not underestimate the fact that you can be that person for somebody else. You can be the one who cares. You can be the one who reaches out to somebody else. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world.
I like that video because all it takes is for you to say hello. When you go for a walk in the evening and you walking up to somebody and they pass by, do you take that moment and say hi? That's all it is. Or do you put your head down and keep walking? I don't want to engage. It's that relationship. Pass by that person today, pass by that person later on. And it's amazing how that conversation just kind of builds, and you make silly little comments just passing by one another, which builds that relationship, which is what mental health is. And that's how we help people.
Yeah, and it's just getting out. I mean, take walks of your job sites, take walks of your places of employment, and make those connections. You know, don't have the first time that you're having a conversation with someone about some big thing be the first time you've ever talked to them. You know, have those conversations, be that culture of care, really look at what we're doing, and think about it not from your perspective, but think about it as, what would my employees think? Or how do they feel about this? Would they really come to us, even though we feel like we're doing a lot of things to support them? Because it's going to take all of us, and we can all be that person. So we want to help you. We want to be your total safety solution, and we do lots of different things. But when we talk about safety and we talk about being that solution, it's looking at all of these pieces. It's not just, you know, wearing your hard hat or wearing your fall protection. Lots of support that we offer. Justine, are there any questions before we go into our final poll that we have out there that we would like answered?
No, there was just someone
perfect.
commented, let me just read it to you. It is important to put information on regular basis regarding EAP. I send out information at least once a month, starting at the orientation, then posting and making sure that supervisors have additional training.
Good.
And then also too, we had a request to get the link for the video to be sent out and shared.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So Justine, if you want to take it, and we will do the final poll, please. If we hit the mark for you and it was good information or helpful, or if you have good information, a few takeaways, or if we missed the mark, we want to know. We really want to make sure we're supporting you and getting you the information you like. So we're looking for.
Couple more seconds. We're at 60% that have answered. Okay, seems like we've slowed down a little bit, so I'll end the poll now.
Okay, great.
Oh, Connie, I just had someone saying that they joined late. What does EAP stand for?
Employee assistance programs. Many companies have them through their benefit programs that they have. A lot of times they're offered as a add-on or a free service that benefit different insurance companies offer.
We have a couple of more minutes for questions. So if anyone has any for Connie or Bob, please feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, well, it looks like everyone has answered. Oh, sorry. How do you, let me just scroll up. How do you get information in the about the mental health classes?
Great question. So This is our contact information. If you do have specifics that you'd like to reach out or any questions we can help with, then you can reach us there. But we do have a mental health first aid training coming up Thursday, June 20th from 9 to 3 p.m., 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can do it in person or virtual. This is a blended class. So you will get a 2-hour assignment to do a portion of it prior to the class. And then you would come together and we do run through scenarios. This is out in a flyer and it will be on our website here shortly. So if you are looking for it and you can't find it, you can email myself or give me a call. I can help get you situated with where to find it. We have lots of different offerings as we have a classroom setting as well. So. All right, are there any other questions that we should, or that?
Oh, can you go back to your contact information?
Oh, yep, absolutely.
Someone said we discuss addictive substances. What about social media? It seems to be addictive and depression inducing.
It is. There are not as many studies done, obviously, as the world has changed over the last, well, now it's probably 10 years. But it's changing and changing even more. And yes, I agree with you. There are studies that say that it does cause depression. It can cause a lot of different mental health illnesses, as it's sometimes not good information, and too much information sometimes isn't good. But yeah, that is another trigger, I guess, as we look at things that could be triggers for different people. Any other questions? All right, well, we would like to thank you. And if you do have questions or need any other assistance, please feel free to reach out. But thank you for spending the last hour with us. Hopefully it was helpful. You learned a few things or were reminded of a few things. But I think we all can be that impact. We can all make a difference starting today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes today's webinar. Have an excellent day.